first reading starts out, it's one from Jeremiah, which says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. I created you. I dedicated you to be a prophet to the nations." And we have this quote over there in granite at our memorial for the unborn, for children lost through miscarriages and through abortions. And it's a reminder, God says, "I formed you." So it is the Lord who is forming the child in the womb. In the Gospel of Luke, we see John the Baptist when he's in the presence of Jesus, who's in the womb of Mary. So you have two children in the womb, the Messiah, Son of God, and John the Baptist. And at the presence of Jesus, it says that the child leaped in the womb for joy. In other words, he wasn't just moving around and kicking, he was leaping for joy at the presence of Christ, showing the child in the womb has a soul and a relationship with God. And that's why it's so important for all Bible-believing Christians, not just the Catholic Church, to recognize the child in the womb. And I find it's very sad to me that there are many churches that claim to follow the Bible and yet ignore this passage or misconstrue it and actually support abortion. And you wonder, does the nation even know? Does it remember, that it's even wrong? Well, I remember when 9/11 happened and the unthinkable occurred. The World Trade Center, not one but both of them, came down. And the United States was under attack, and we didn't know to what extent it was under attack. We didn't know what was coming next. People were afraid. I was afraid. I thought, well, this could be it, I had just been here a year, just starting out. And you know what? For 2 weeks after that, there wasn't one abortion in New York City. Kind of interesting. For 2 weeks. And you say to yourself, what about all the strong atheists that don't believe in God? Why would they let something like the fear of imminent death cause them not to do what they normally would have done? It's amazing how people change their thought patterns if they think they're liable to die real soon. For 2 weeks, not one person. So, as a nation, we have sort of come to a point where, this whole culture war going on, where the news media, which is controlled by this 1% of the elite, and they make sure that they keep pounding the messages of the propaganda machine to discredit the church, to discredit the message of the pro-life movement, to hide everything. And I find it kind of interesting. They want to show you every graphic thing they can, all kinds of graphic things. But there's one little area that they don't want to show anything graphic, and that's when it comes to the issue of abortion. Now on YouTube, you have a couple of videos that are real eye-openers. One is put out by Dr. Bernard Nathanson, who was an atheist and pushed for abortion in the beginning. He later came to his senses through the grace of God and became a Catholic and joined the pro-life movement and made the videos, which you can look up, The Silent Scream and The Eclipse of Reason, and also the video The Hard Truth, real eye-openers. I used to show that in my classes when I would teach RCIA, and I would give the people the option of leaving. Sometimes we had people that would leave, but I'd say, I encourage you to watch. It's only 10 minutes long. But I had all these people at the end of the video going, wow, Father, I had no idea. It was a real eye-opener. And I remember watching the presidential debate Ronald Reagan on TV. And this is the first time I got to vote. I got to vote for the Gipper back then. Voted for Ron, first time I got to vote. But in the debate, he was on there and he said, about a woman's right to do what she wants with her own body. And Ronald Reagan said, since when does a woman's body have 4 eyes, 4 hands, 2 brains, 2 hearts? It was a rather profound point for a presidential candidate to be making. I don't know how much of that we're ever going to see again, the way the culture's going. They're wearing us down. But, I'm not hoping I don't kick the bucket anytime soon. I'm hoping I got another 20 or 30 years left in me. Till the day I die, I hope to be the voice for the unborn, because that's what Christ has called us to do. I don't like to talk about this issue. But as far as I'm concerned, I have no choice. Me and you are both called to be soldiers for Christ, and we are called not to be silent. And it's our job. Many of you may know people out there who might be considering an abortion, or a woman who's had one and needs to be healed. Project Rachel, named after Rachel in the Old Testament because of St. Matthew's Gospel, where Herod realizes that Jesus isn't there, he's escaped, or he thinks he's escaping, and he orders all the children under 2 years of age to be massacred. And the little quote from the Old Testament, the prophecy, Rachel weeping for her children because they are no more. And so that's where the Project Rachel gets its name, and it's about women being healed. I've been a priest 23 years, and I've had women come to me who are hurt because they've had miscarriages, and hurt because they made a choice of abortion and they regret it. And the effect that it has on women, many times they will become promiscuous, whereas they weren't so much before. They'll become involved in drugs. They'll become suicidal, depressed, have horrible nightmares. I've had women coming to me, and I have to explain to them, God forgives. King David is in heaven, and he is a forgiven adulterer, a forgiven murderer. And I always use him as the example, and Christ is called the Son of David. There is healing, there is forgiveness. With God, nothing is impossible. And many people, as part of the healing process, men and women who've been involved have wound up going around to the other side and working on the pro-life movement. Women who've run abortion clinics have come around and been converted and exposed what was going on in there. I myself have been outside many clinics many times praying. One time I remember I was with an elderly woman. It was just me and her. There was 2 of us, a little 2-man army. We were walking back and forth praying a rosary. And I remember Prince George's County cops pulled up, in force. Anyone knows anything about PG County back in Maryland, they have a tendency to go in and take care of you quickly with the nightstick. And I'm looking at these guys, and they're not looking real happy at me. And I'm in my priest collar, and I got the rosary. I'm thinking, are they about to beat my brains in? And I waved to them and smiled. They didn't wave back. And I'm like, this isn't good. And I thought, well, I'll try to make sure I get in front of this older woman that I'm praying with and shield her if they're coming to get us. I don't know what else to do. And there were so many of them, I thought, well, fighting back's really not a good idea. So they went into the lady who had called the police who owned the clinic. I imagine she probably said, we were, brandishing guns and bombs and nuclear weapons at them. I don't know what she said, And then the police are looking. There's a priest with an old lady holding rosaries walking back and forth on the sidewalk. And they probably eventually figured out, that we were not a real threat. And they never waved back. They got in their cars and they left and never came over to me. Thank God. So, we are called to do what we can, to witness. Now, the pro-life march, unfortunately, got hit with the snowstorm this year. But it must never end. While we have the freedom, to be able to speak, and our freedoms are slowly being eroded away. We've got this creeping, powerful secularism that we need to be careful of. Now, a couple of points I want to just finish up on. Again, there is forgiveness, there is healing. And a lot of priests, you talk to priests and they're like, they don't want to talk about abortion. What are you going to do that for? It's political, it's that. No, it's not. Don't be gutless, man. Speak up. I got to stand in front of Jesus at the end of my life, and I got enough to worry about already. I don't need to worry about neglecting to be the voice for the unborn and making sure my parishioners have the knowledge to be able to defend life if they get in a position. And keep in mind, we have the clinic here, the Crisis Pregnancy Center, Hands of Hope for Life, and they're here to help. And a couple of points I like to make, because a lot of people, this has a tendency to get swept under the rug. And here's what I always say. And I brought this up at a meeting one time. We had some guys coming in to talk to us about preaching, and I brought this up, and I got a lot of interesting looks after I made this point. But the point is real simple. In the eyes of God, is there any difference between a child that is 3 months old in the womb or 3 years old? You have a little 3-year-old girl outside the womb, and they're pretty helpless. Children are helpless, inside the womb or outside the womb. They're just little kids. They can't defend themselves against adults. It's like I couldn't probably done too good against PG County cops. There's about 10 of them. Just me. The rosary. I thought I'm pretty tough sometimes being from Jersey, but that would have been a bit of a difficult situation. I don't know how well my ninja moves would have saved me. But the children rely on us to protect them. We are the protectors of children. We represent God. We protect children. That's our job. So, the way America has managed to sort of sweep it under the carpet, well, the child's in the womb, so you don't see it, except for those movies I mentioned at the beginning on YouTube. But the eyes of God are upon us. In the eyes of God, there's no difference. He created that little 3-month-old girl in the womb and the 3-year-old girl outside of the womb. And they both have a soul. They're both children. Now, how would you feel if they came out with a rule, parents, child gets annoying, cries too much, whatever, until they're 5 years old, you can take them to the clinic, might as well just say the abortion clinic, same thing, and you can turn them in to have them terminated, You say, well, Father, that would be murder. You can't, that's horrible. Really? What's the difference? Does God see it any different? No, we see it different. Because we have been brainwashed and deluded by the media's propaganda machine. And that's why those videos, the hard truth, the silent scream, the eclipse of reason are real eye-openers, because that's when you see it. And it's a real wake-up call. And then people say, what about rape or incest? Okay, what about it? Does the abortion undo the rape or the incest? Does it undo the trauma that the woman has because of that? No, it adds a new trauma, a new problem. The memory of the abortion on top of the rape. She can always give the child up for adoption if she chooses not to raise a child. And I remember I talked to one when she said, oh no, I could never do that. I'd rather kill the child before I would give it up for adoption. And I'm like, well, I really didn't quite know what to. Sometimes people can stump me. You can silence Father Burke. You can occasionally get me so stumped that I just kind of sit there and just don't know what to say to that. I didn't know what to say. All I can say is I hope people don't see it that way. But the heartbeat starts at 21 days. By the time a woman realizes she's pregnant, heartbeat's already there. The name of our church, the Immaculate Conception. Mary conceived without sin. At the end of our lives, when the heartbeat stops and we stop breathing and the body stops being alive, the soul that animates the body leaves. On the other end of the spectrum at the beginning, The moment the cells are animated in the mother's womb and life begins, what is in there keeping those cells alive? The soul. God has put that individual soul in that little child in the womb from the moment of conception. And as I said, well, the heartbeat starts at 21 days. It takes that long for a woman to even realize she's pregnant. So Jesus says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. I dedicated you. Now, he's speaking to the prophet Jeremiah, and he's dedicated as a prophet. You know, he's Jeremiah. He's got one of the biggest books in the Old Testament. But really, doesn't it apply to everyone? Isn't everyone formed by God in the womb? Isn't everyone dedicated to the Lord? Isn't that why we're here? We're created by God for God, to know Him, love Him, and serve Him in this world, and be happy forever with Him in the next. It's really simple. So once a year I do this. I try to make the point, and I do it around January 22nd, and because of the snowstorm I got a little thrown off. But I wanted to make sure I spoke a little bit about it. And so if you know some woman who has had an abortion, encourage her to contact Project Rachel and go through the healing process. If you know someone, a young girl, a teenager, or a young woman who's considering an abortion, encourage them to go to the clinic. You may say, Father, I'm just not good with arguments. I can't answer all that, Fine. Send her to the professionals. Encourage her to consider all the options before making an irreversible decision that will affect her for the rest of her life. Again, I've had to deal in 23 years, there's only so much they can teach you in seminary, folks, The rest of it you got to kind of pick up on your own as you go along. Common sense and the grace of God working together to do your best. I've had so many people come and fall apart in front of me in tears, whether it's abortion, miscarriage, divorce, somebody died, whatever, crisis. And I do my best to turn them back to the Lord. St. Thomas Aquinas says God would never allow any evil were he not able to bring a greater good from it. And I've always been perplexed by that theological teaching when it comes to abortion. All I can imagine as the victims of abortion will receive an incredible reward in heaven, which will no doubt compensate them for what happened to them. As the children, the holy innocents, how many people can say they died in the place of Christ? The children in the Gospel of Matthew, the holy innocents, killed by Herod. Herod was seeking to kill Jesus, and he got those children instead. They died in the place of Christ. And so we have the Feast of the Holy Innocents. We have the memorial over there to the Holy Innocents, which we put under the blanket umbrella, not just the ones in Matthew, but all the children that die from abortion and miscarriage and whatever. They're innocent children. And their lives were cut short at the very beginning. It's a sad fact, it's a sad reality. But we turn to God the Father, the creator of all things, the God of love, the God of mercy, the God of justice. He has a plan, He has a solution. Jesus says, behold, I make all things new. I will wipe away every tear from their eye. There will be no more suffering, nor sorrow, nor sin. For God will dwell with His people forever. And that's what it says at the end of the Scriptures in the book of Revelation. It says we win. The good guys win in the end. So let us be part of the good guys here and now, even though we are in the midst of a serious spiritual and cultural warfare. Let us be sure we stick with the good Lord, and He will never, ever let us down.